So tonight we had a very special evening and it was all about champagne. And not just any champagne, but the house of Philipponnat. And François, you want to tell us a little bit about what we tasted tonight and what the house of champagne house of Philipponnat stands for.
Okay, so tonight we tasted 3 cuvées from the house, the Philipponnat house, whose history and whose legacy dates back to 1522, when my ancestor first bought his first plot of vineyard on a lieu-dit called Le Léon, from which we make a single vineyard cuvée, which we actually tasted tonight. And tonight was about rediscovering a cuvée that the Dutch market already knows, which is the rosé, and discovering 2 new releases that are from the vintage 2014, the Mareuil-sur-Ay and the Le Léon, 2 single plot cuvées that were never distributed in the Netherlands previously.
So it's interesting because for most people that know your house, you have a focus on Pinot Noir. So for those who don't know now, you know, because this is a lot of the story that we talked about tonight is also about Pinot Noir. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what Pinot Noir means for you in terms of the champagnes you produce, and then we could also obviously talk about the 3 different champagnes because, well, it has a very special place in all 3 of the champagnes that we had today.
Well, Pinot Noir holds a special place, obviously, and it's because basically not only is it a tool in our winemaking, it's part of our identity. Because these lands where my ancestors settled 16 generations ago is the very heart of Champagne, which is known as UNESCO World Heritage Historic Heart of Champagne, because where we're located on south-facing chalk slopes of the Montagne de Reims, the grape variety that grows the best is indeed the Pinot Noir. So knowing that we've been rooted and settled there for over half a millenary, we've adapted to the land we belong to, and we don't try to force the nature, we go along with it. And so we have to go along with the Pinot Noir, but it's not much of an effort. And as we've been in the same area for such a long time, all of our vineyards are concentrated in that very same area. And as I said, this is the area of Pinot Noir. So over the 20 hectares which we own in that area, 80% of them are Pinot Noir. Mm-hmm. So that obviously has an impact on our blends, which are mainly composed with Pinot Noir.
And you can see, of course, with the rosé champagne, obviously you see it in the color. You also told us a little bit about the process of making the rosé champagne. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, sure. So there are 2 ways of making rosés in Champagne. There's the way you make rosé everywhere else, which is by slight skin contact, just enough so that you would extract the nice pink color which you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And the other way, which is the most common way in Champagne, but at the same time only in Champagne can you do it like this, is through blending red wine with white wine. Maybe 95% of the rosé champagnes are made like this, and this is one of them. So in order to do it, we, as I said, we blend red wine with white wine, and at Philipponnat all the red wines we make come from a very specific plot, which is within the Clos des Goisses, which is our landmark vineyard, which is very famous for being the warmest terroir in Champagne due to the combination of the slope and the south exposition, which makes it also easier to produce ripe and concentrated red wines. So that's why all the red wines we produce come from that area. And so in our rosé, you have a proportion of wine from the Clos des Goisses.
But it's interesting because you already mentioned it's not easy to make red wine and grow Pinot Noir in Champagne. But this, what you're using here is especially the best site that is best suited also for that. You were using it in a red wine. You could use it in a red wine. We talked about that, but for you, the red wine goes into the rosé sparkling champagne.
Yes, because it's still pretty light red wine, and to achieve great intensity, we still need to concentrate it by removing 1/3 of the musts in order to concentrate even more the two remaining thirds. So.
Okay, and then we have two other very special bottles that we tasted, and like you said, also introduction into the Dutch market. Can you tell us a little bit about what makes those two so special?
Yeah, so those two are like siblings or maybe cousins, because they come from the same idea, the same concept, which is showing our craft in winemaking, great Pinot Noirs, great terroir Pinot Noir. So we wanted to show at the same time the typicity, the specificity, singularity of the land we grow our vines on, and wanted to show the specificity of the grape that grows on. So these are part of our single origin range. So basically it's close to single vineyard cuvées. So they both come from a single area. They are both 100% Pinot Noir, 100% barrel fermented, 100% without malolactic fermentation. So they're kind of full on, if you will. On one hand, we have the Le Léon, which comes from the historic plot of the family, the exact plot where my ancestor already owned vineyards 501 years ago, which we mainly use as the main component of the cuvée 1522. But in the years when it's exceptional enough and that we produce a fair amount of it and that we still have enough to do both, we will use it for the 1522 cuvée, which is a blend cuvée, and keep some of it to be vinified separately and to be shown in its purest expression.
And this becomes the Le Léon.
That becomes the Le Léon. And then we have the Mareuil-sur-Ay, which is actually a blend of 3 cuvées, so it's not a single vineyard per se. That's why we talk more about single origin, because it all comes from the village of Mareuil-sur-Ay, which is where our cellars and offices and winery and most of our vineyards are now. So on the slopes of the hill of Mareuil, which is a very chalky hill, a combination of various expositions, west exposition, east exposition, rather south exposition, combined together to show the identity and the unicity of the terroir of Mareuil-sur-Ay.
In 3 locations, orientations, maybe better said, with the same soil type.
Correct.
And characteristics, and then you bring it together into one wine, and that goes the same. It's also produced in excellent vintages, or is this a champagne that you produce more?
So no, this is both of them are champagnes we produce only in excellent vintages, because they're single vineyard, single origin, so you don't have the flexibility to adjust the blend to find the balance on a more challenging vintage. So you need a vintage that combines all the parameters that make a great wine. Here the vintage was 2014 for both of them, so a rather fresh, cool, elegant vintage, but with also a nice concentration, but that's more due to the winemaking and the exposition and the terroir.
So maybe one last question. Since you are now going into the direction of, as you say, single origin wine, or single vineyard but single origin more, is this a trend that you see for the winery? You will see more diversification. Of course, you will need the uniqueness of a specific vineyard or plots, but it's a trend that you started a few years. Well, it wasn't always there, so it's a trend that you set it. Is it something that you will develop further in the future?
So it's a trend. It's becoming a trend in Champagne for the past 10 years, 10, 15 years maybe. One has to know that it's something that at Philipponnat we've actually been doing for almost a century, because the very first single vineyard cuvée in the history of Champagne was the Clos des Goisses, and the very first vintage of the Clos des Goisses was 1880. So
we're talking to the masters of the single vineyard, single origin.
But we were doing it back then because the Clos des Goisses was such an exceptional terroir that it forced a new vision, a new approach to winemaking in Champagne, which is closer to the approach in Burgundy. The reasons why there's a new trend now, a new wave of a first wave actually of single vineyard cuvées is for different reasons. On one hand, there's the growers who gather the vineyards from their parents and decide they want to make their own wines, but all of their vineyards are in a very restricted area. So in order to show versatility, etc. in the terroir, they need to dive into the specificities of the terroirs that are in a narrower radius. So that's why they have this approach. And also global warming helping, you need less of the magic of the blend, blending a different terroirs, combining them in order to create something different, to reach the optimal balance.
It becomes more clear through the global warming.
Yeah,
it helps it to, let's say, make it more clear, the differences as well.
And to make it riper, so you don't have to blend stuff together to create the sensation of ripeness. The ripeness is just there. It offers you more options. Doesn't mean you need to do it every time, every year, on every plot. You still need to look into your vineyards and to see which ones have something to say. The approach at Philipponnat, we never thought, oh, there's a trend for that, let's do single vineyard cuvées. The way it happened is every year, every grower, everybody in Champagne tastes wine from plot differently. Everybody in Champagne vinifies single plot. But the only thing is that they would taste them at still wines tasting a few months after the harvest, and then decide of a blend to create a greater wine. Because in Champagne, it's always through this kind of the recipes, secret recipes you would have a blending that you would create great wines. The only difference is now we decided sometimes we taste some of these plots separately that are meant to be blended with other stuff, and we say, but it tastes so good like this, why blend it? And in the past it was not like this. You would taste it and you would feel it would need to be paired with something else to become greater. And now the wines just get better, and this is because of the climate change, but this is also because we have more knowledge and expertise and understanding on the winemaking on our terroir, and basically we make better wines. And at Philipponnat, what happens is these wines, the Mareuil-sur-Ay, we would usually use it for making our Blanc de Noir, and the Le Léon for our 1522. But some years we taste them having in mind that we will use them for a blend, and they taste so good on their own that we try to isolate a part of it to show it like this. It's more like a game, and we make 2,000 bottles of each of them, so it's very rare and exclusive.
It stays an exclusive and unique wine.
Yeah.
And we're very thankful that we were able to taste it tonight. So thank you for bringing them over, especially. I think you brought them yourself.
Yes, I did.
And now available also through the Dutch importer, Vinites. So we would like to thank Vinites, of course, for organizing this together with you. And the Swarte Ruijter restaurant, where we had a nice dinner. So maybe, François, you want to say some last words to the people that don't know yet Philipponnat, but after this will surely want to try.
Yeah, well, if you don't know yet Philipponnat, you can start with tasting some of our cuvées. It's a good way to get acquainted. And then, I just drove there this morning, so it's an easy ride, easy drive. Don't hesitate to come by Champagne and to visit us. It's a beautiful piece of land with a lot of history and nice people. some of the French people are nice.
I agree. And I have to say, a final remark, we reviewed your Royal. So I would not say house champagne or estate champagne because I know it doesn't exist, but it's your, I would say, also the most sold champagne that you have. We were already very impressed by that, so we have a nice review of it. But after tasting this excellence tonight, we can tell everybody that, if you like that, you'll surely need to try this if you can get your hands on one of the few bottles that are available.
30 of each.
Very good. Thank you, François.
You're welcome. Thank you, Neil.
Bye.